In the NBA, Bam Adebayo sinks the Brooklyn Nets on a gorgeous buzzer beater to win 109-107. Again, this Miami team has just been so hard to identify, but they collect a major win. It's true that Jimmy Butler was not playing in this game. Kevin Durant had to leave, had to exit the game quickly due to a upper thigh contusion. James Harden was not playing in this game. But I don't want to focus on that part of the story today because Bam Adebayo is an emerging superstar before our very eyes. This is a guy who's just 23, fourth year in the NBA. He was all-NBA defensive second team last year, who was an all-star for this first time ever in his career last year. And this is a guy who's averaging career highs in points, career highs in assists, 19 points, 9 rebounds, 5.2 assists this year, 51% from the floor, or 57% rather, and 81% from the free throw line. This is a guy who's a center, yet is showing tremendous versatility on the defensive side of the ball. He's their best defender. He's their go-to scorer now, especially with Jimmy Butler out. This is a guy who can put the ball on the floor as a center and create his own shot. Doesn't need to be set up like a Nikola Jokic. This guy can just take the ball at the elbow like he did, have a guy like Jeff Green draped all over him, and put the ball on the floor, give him a little shoulder bump, and hit a tough step back over him at the buzzer. 21 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists. This guy, Bam Adebayo, has been absolutely fantastic for the Miami Heat. But this is the interesting thing. We talk about his offense and how that continues to blossom every single year. Take a listen to these defensive stats. When Bam Adebayo was guarding a player on the Brooklyn Nets last night, those players combined to go 3 for 17. When Kyrie Irving was defended by Bam Adebayo, he went 0 of 8 from the floor. So this guy affects the game in so many other ways. You talk to Coach Eric Spoelstra. Why is it that he's so impactful? It's not just the quantifiable numbers. It's not just the actual stats, but it's the overall impact, how you affect shots, your deflections, your efficiency with which you shoot. And this is just the 5th. There have been 5 previous legitimate buzzer beaters this year in the NBA. This is one of them. We had Terry Rozier over the Warriors, Damian Lillard against the Bulls to win 123-122. Memphis and Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks just a couple days ago. We saw that buzzer beater unfold for Luka. That was a tremendous shot. Buddy Hield earlier in the year against the Denver Nuggets had a tip-in buzzer beater. And even Cole Anthony with the Orlando Magic, who no one talks about them, went the length of the floor and hit a walk-off three-pointer to win 97-96. And now we add Bam Adebayo. This is probably the 3rd legitimate buzzer beater in the NBA this year. Fantastic shot. But Miami is the ultimate enigma because this is a team that I can't seem to figure out. It's like they're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's like they're an unsolvable Rubik's Cube. You go to Ralph's, you're buying produce. One week the fruit is ripe. The next week the fruit is sour and tasteless. You don't know what you're going to get week in and week out. And the problem with the Miami Heat, as much as this game was a perhaps tremendous turning point, the biggest problem with the Miami Heat right now is that normally when we evaluate teams, we say, okay, what is your average? What's your median? When you couple your best wins with your worst losses, what do you average out to? The problem and the reason why this is a flawed and erroneous method of trying to evaluate the Miami Heat is they actually don't have that many really bad losses this year. Their worst loss came the game before the Nets game when they lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves. That was the worst game that they played all year, losing by 8. Other than that, they lost to Detroit by 20 at some point earlier in the year. That was also not a great loss. Excluding those 2 losses throughout an entire 72-game schedule up until this point. They've played at least 50 something games. I think they're 29 and 28. So 57 games, only 2 really bad losses. They lost to the Orlando Magic on opening day, but that's irrelevant because they had just come off a championship run. And that's what's disappointing. They even lost to the Washington Wizards at one point by 3 points, but we saw the Wizards beat the Nets twice. They beat the Lakers. And I actually have them making the postseason. I had them making the postseason in the beginning of the year. So I think they're starting to turn it around. This is a Miami Heat team that just came off a fresh appearance in the NBA Finals as the 5th seed. And they come back the following season this year, and they get off to a terrible start, 7-14 to start the year over their first 21 games. They're the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference, and no one seems to figure out why. For whatever reason, they just have not been able to find the consistency needed day in and day out to be one of the upper echelon teams. And I love all the additions that they've made. They added Victor Oladipo, who's going to be returning soon. Trevor Ariza has been a fantastic addition, just dropped his 4th straight double-digit game for the Heat. And he's kind of filling that Jay Crowder role and filling that void that Jay Crowder provided for the Heat last year, an elite defender and a 3-and-D guy. Yet, for whatever reason, this group just has not been able to coalesce and mesh the way that we had hoped for. And Jimmy Butler, he called the media out. He called us out in the finals last year for not believing in the Miami Heat, for being these underdogs, having this winner mentality and people doubting them and not buying into their team. Well, this is the reason why, is because when you come off a championship run and you get off to a horrendous start and now you're 1 game above 500, if it wasn't for a buzzer beater from Bam Adebayo, this team would be below 500. They're 29 and 28 right now, 7th in the Eastern Conference. So I don't want to hear about from Jimmy Butler, well, you guys as media members are doubting us as a team because we have reason to feel that way. You have not been able to string together consistent enough performances to the point where you're right. We should give you the benefit of the doubt. Now, I will say this. This is the one thing I will acknowledge about the Miami Heat. I would not want to face them in the first round. Do I know if this, in fact, will be a turning point, will catapult them and re-energize them for the final 15, 16 games of the season? That I don't know. But I do know this. The narrative has always been around which of those bottom feeders want to avoid the big 3 in the Eastern Conference, to avoid the Milwaukee Bucks, to avoid the 76ers, to avoid the Brooklyn Nets. That's what's been the narrative, is how can we position ourselves to avoid playing these teams in the first round? But really, when it comes to the Miami Heat, the narrative should be switched around. The true narrative should be, which of these big 3 teams wants to face Miami in the first round? Because I can tell you, the Nets don't want to see him. The 76ers don't want to see him in the first round. And the Milwaukee Bucks know firsthand that they want no business dealing with the Miami Heat in the first round. This team is deep. Their roster is extremely balanced. Jimmy Butler, Bam, Goran Dragic, Hero, Robinson, now Victor Oladipo, Ariza's in the fold. This is a deep team. And they're well coached, they're disciplined, they're gritty, they're plucky. You can't just discount the Miami Heat when it comes to individual series, which is why we've been so infuriated with how they've played this year, because this is a team that shouldn't be the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics have been playing better. They've got a better record. The Charlotte Hornets have a better record than the Miami Heat. How does that happen? I understand injuries can play a part and derail certain teams. I'm not giving them this excuse this time. So again, they're just such an odd team to figure out. It's like you're getting off a roller coaster and you're not sure if you were enthralled by the experience or if you think it's going to be a traumatic one. But all you do know is you get off saying, well, I'd love to ride this roller coaster again, but I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. So I definitely wouldn't want to face him in the first round. And this was a major win for him. Hopefully it's a stepping stone. But again, it just further highlights and elucidates the fact that this team is 7th seed in the Eastern Conference and would actually have to be a part of the play-in tournament, which is pretty wild to me when you think about how far they've come and what this team consists of. It's just pretty hard to imagine. Again,